Picture this, it's March 2009. General Motors is bleeding money faster than a politician bleeds promises. The company is weeks away from the largest industrial bankruptcy in American history. Executives are practicing their "I'm sorry" faces in bathroom mirrors. And somewhere in Canada, a factory starts building what should have been a funeral wreath for American muscle, but instead became its resurrection. 426 horsepower. 426, that's not a typo. That's what GM decided to stuff into the new Camaro while their accountants were busy calculating how many paperclips they could sell to survive. The Mustang GT was sitting at 315 horses, probably feeling pretty good about itself. And then GM showed up with 111 more horsepower and a corporate death wish. 0 to 60 in 4.8 seconds. Car and driver tested it, verified it, and probably whispered something they weren't supposed to print. The Mustang, 5.1 seconds. The Challenger RT, also 5.1. But the Camaro SS? It was running away from both of them while GM's lawyers were running away from creditors. This is the story of how a dying company built the fastest American muscle car available at any dealership in 2010, and in the process, ended Ford's 23-year sales dominance. Plot twist: they didn't screw this up. Let me paint you a picture of automotive insanity. In 2002, GM looked at the Camaro, a nameplate that had sold over 5 million units since 1967, and said, "Nah, we're good." They discontinued it, killed it, buried it in a shallow grave next to the Firebird, and walked away whistling like nothing happened. For 7 long years, Camaro enthusiasts wandered the earth like automotive zombies, forced to watch the Mustang strut around unopposed. Ford didn't even have to try anymore. The Mustang was winning by default. It was like being the best player on a team where everyone else went home. But here's where the story gets genuinely insane. In 2006, GM unveiled a concept Camaro at the Detroit Auto Show. The crowd went absolutely feral. Auto Week editors, a group not known for getting excited about anything, unanimously voted it best in show. The designer? A South Korean named Sang-Yup Lee, who apparently understood American muscle better than Americans did. The concept had a 6-liter LS2 V8 making 400 horsepower, 21-inch wheels up front, 22-inch wheels in the rear, and styling that made every Mustang in the parking lot look like a participation trophy. GM executives looked at the crowd reaction and, in a rare moment of clarity, said, "Okay, fine, let's actually build this thing." But here's the twist nobody saw coming. GM didn't develop this car in Detroit. They sent it to Australia. GM Holden, their Australian division, was the company's global center for rear-wheel drive excellence. While Detroit was busy making SUVs that got 12 miles per gallon and handled like shopping carts, the Australians were quietly perfecting the art of making cars that could actually turn. Sometimes the best American muscle comes from 12,000 miles away. The Zeta platform cost approximately $1 billion Australian dollars to develop. 1 billion. Started in 1999, completed in 2004, originally built for the Holden Commodore, a car most Americans have never heard of, but Australians worship like a religion. GM Holden led the final design, engineering, and development of the Camaro. Detroit basically wrote the check and stayed out of the way. Hell froze over and Detroit built something brilliant. The same platform that would underpin the Pontiac G8, one of the most underrated sports sedans in American history, was shortened, tweaked, and turned into the 5th-generation Camaro. And here's the kicker. It was the first Camaro ever with independent rear suspension. First time in 43 years of existence, the Camaro finally learned how to corner. Let that sink in. For 4 decades, Camaros had live axles bouncing around in the back like a shopping cart with a broken wheel. And suddenly, there's a multi-link independent setup pulling 0.92 G on the skid pad. Car and driver measured it. 0.92. That's not muscle car territory, that's sports car territory wearing a muscle car costume. The LS3 V8 made 426 horsepower and 420 pound-feet of torque. This engine doesn't make power. It makes enemies. Ford's engineering department probably needed group therapy after seeing these dyno sheets. Somewhere in Dearborn, a Mustang engineer looked at his 315 horsepower and quietly updated his resume. But wait, here's where GM got genuinely weird. The automatic was actually faster to 60. The L99 engine made 400 horsepower, and with that 6-speed automatic, car and driver clocked 4.6 seconds. The lazy option was the quick option. It's like finding out the elevator is faster than the stairs. Technically wrong, but you're not complaining. Let that marinate for a second. The cheaper transmission was actually quicker. The quarter mile, 13 flat at 111 miles per hour with the manual. That's not just fast, that's your Corvette-owning neighbor is having an existential crisis. Fast. The Mustang GT was running 13s too, but the Camaro was doing it while embarrassing Ford with over 100 extra horsepower. Now here's where we need to talk about timing, because this is where the story goes from impressive to absolutely ridiculous. Production started on March 16, 2009. Sales began in April 2009. And on June 1, 2009, General Motors filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, the largest industrial bankruptcy in American history. Let me say that again for the people in the back. GM was building the fastest muscle car in America while simultaneously preparing to tell Uncle Sam they were broke. The same company that would need a $50 billion taxpayer bailout was pumping out 426 horsepower performance cars. Accountants were crying, lawyers were panicking, engineers were building legends. This is what happens when the left hand has no idea what the right hand is doing. And somehow, impossibly, both hands are giving thumbs up. The Oshawa assembly plant in Ontario, Canada was scheduled to close in 2008. Dead. Done. 2,750 workers were about to lose their jobs. But GM decided to invest $740 million into the plant for Camaro production. They literally saved a factory by betting on a muscle car during the worst financial crisis since the Great Depression. If you're loving this story of corporate insanity and automotive redemption, smash that subscribe button, because we've got plenty more where this came from. And stick around, because Ford's reaction to all this was absolutely priceless. Let's talk about what happened when this thing hit dealerships. Ford had been winning the muscle car sales race for 23 consecutive years. From 1986 to 2009, the Mustang outsold everything in its class. It wasn't even close most years. The Camaro's last sales victory was in 1985, before most of you were born. And then 2010 happened. The Camaro sold 81,299 units. The Mustang? 73,716. The Challenger? 36,000 and change. GM didn't just win, they ended a dynasty while their corporate headquarters was still warm from bankruptcy proceedings. Here's what Ford said when asked about getting absolutely demolished, and I quote, "Ford admits Camaro sales will outpace Mustang in 2010. That's it. That's the official response. The corporate equivalent of "my dog ate my homework." They blamed pent-up demand from 7 years without a Camaro, which, to be fair, is like blaming gravity when you fall off a building you chose to jump from. Ford didn't lose. They just experienced unexpected consumer enthusiasm for competitors. Sure, guys, but GM had another secret weapon nobody saw coming. And it wasn't Australian. In 2007, a little movie called Transformers hit theaters. Global phenomenon, billion-dollar franchise. And guess what car played the heroic Bumblebee? A yellow fifth-generation Camaro concept. Michael Bay did GM's marketing for free. Suddenly, every 12-year-old in America was begging their parents for a yellow Camaro, and those 12-year-olds had surprisingly persuasive arguments. GM, in a rare moment of competent marketing, created the Transformers Special Edition. Autobot shield badges, wheel center caps with the logo, interior embroidery, and high-gloss black rally stripes with a Ghost Transformers logo. They built 1,916 of them before ending production in January 2010. A limited edition that actually became collectible. GM accidentally did something smart twice in 1 year. The 2010 Camaro won the World Car Design of the Year award on April 1, 2010. Yes, April Fool's Day. But it wasn't a joke. A bankrupt American company won an International Design Award against European competition. The same GM that was technically owned by taxpayers had just beaten BMW, Audi, and everyone else in a beauty contest. I couldn't make this up if I tried. World Car Design of the Year, while technically award of the US government, during a recession. Let that marinate. Let's talk value, because this is where it gets irritatingly good. The base V6 Camaro started at $22,995. For that money, you got 304 horsepower from a V6. That's more power than the Mustang GT had in 2005, The base model was embarrassing Ford's former hero. GM accidentally made their entry-level car a weapon. The SS started at $30,995. 31 grand for 426 horsepower, Brembo brakes, 20-inch wheels, and Pirelli P0 tires. That's $12.72 per horsepower. The Mustang GT cost roughly the same but came with 111 fewer horses. Ford was basically charging the same money for less car. And people noticed. Now let's compare this to what else 30 grand got you in 2010. You could buy a base BMW 328i, 230 horsepower of German anxiety, and scheduled maintenance bills that arrive like clockwork. Or, you could have nearly twice the power, a manual transmission that doesn't require a second mortgage to repair, and change left over for gas. Sometimes the obvious choice is obvious for a reason. The Brembos were proper 4-piston units front and rear, 14-inch rotors up front, 14.4 in the rear. An American muscle car that could actually stop. I know, I'm as shocked as you are. For decades, stopping a muscle car required prayer, planning, and preferably a soft hedge. But the Camaro SS stopped from 70 miles per hour in 161 feet. Not spectacular, but competent. For Detroit in 2010, that was basically a standing ovation. Here's a fun fact that'll annoy your know-it-all friend. Every rear quarter panel was the largest GM had ever stamped. They needed 18 hours to assemble each car. 18 hours. That's longer than most relationships last these days. This wasn't some thrown-together revival. This was Australian-engineered precision wearing American muscle bodywork. The engineers actually gave a damn, and you could tell. The Camaro paced the Indianapolis 500 3 years in a row, 2009, 2010, and 2011. 3 consecutive years. It was the automotive equivalent of showing up to every party, being the most interesting guest, stealing everyone's attention, and leaving with their respect. The Mustang hadn't paced Indy since 1994. GM wasn't just winning, they were showing off. But what made this comeback truly legendary wasn't just the car, it was the timing. GM needed something to believe in. America needed something to believe in. The economy was in shambles. Detroit was a punchline, and here was this aggressively styled, obnoxiously powerful, genuinely capable muscle car saying, "We're not dead yet." The 5th-generation Camaro proved something important. That Detroit could still build world-class performance cars when it actually tried. Not competent cars. Not good enough cars. World-class, award-winning, competition-crushing cars. They just apparently needed near-death experiences to remember how. The 2010 Camaro SS wasn't just a car. It was Detroit's redemption arc, written in horsepower. An apology for the Iron Duke Camaro. An apology for the 4th gen's catfish face. An apology for 7 years of nothing while Ford strutted around unopposed. 426 horses of "we're sorry," with a middle finger pointed directly at Dearborn. Is this the greatest muscle car comeback in history? Some say the Boss 302's return deserves that title. Others point to the Hellcat. But name me another car that beat its rival during a literal bankruptcy, got free marketing from a robot movie, won World Car Design of the Year, and saved 2,750 Canadian jobs. All in the same 18 months. I'll wait. If you've enjoyed watching GM accidentally achieve greatness during corporate death, hit that subscribe button and join the Car Chronicles family. Next time, we're looking at Ford's response, the 2011 Mustang GT and its new Coyote V8. Did 412 horsepower and a screaming red line finally give Ford an answer? Or did the Camaro keep dancing on Dearborn's grave? This is Car Chronicles, where bankruptcies build legends.